So today we'll be starting up the cranial nerve. So I hope you've gone through the note which I have given you about the cranial nerves. So third, fourth, and fifth. So what are the names of them? So the third is the oculomotor, fourth is the trochlear, sixth is the abducens, right? So actually this is a different class. Oculomotor is taught in one class and trochlear and abducens in another, but I don't see the need of two classes, right? Because these three are the motor nerves of the organ. So in this present class, it's like already you finished your gross and the neuroanatomy. So this is again something which has to combine these two things together in this class. So when we study about the cranial nerve, so there's an order in which you have to study the cranial nerves. So first thing, if a nerve is given to you in examination, so if it's a facial or an oculomotor. So first, what is this oculomotor? Is there anything special about it or something which you can condense and tell about it? So that will be the introduction. So after that, then you will see the functional components. So I've given you another picture about the brainstem nuclei, which is showing the motor nuclei and the sensory. So the functional components have to be mentioned. After that, from the start to the end. So where do these nuclei start? In the brainstem. So at different levels. So you've got sections of the brainstem, midbrain, pons, then medulla. So there, that particular location of the nucleus, you must know where it is. So you have to know the sections of the brainstem. Okay, so that's one thing. So that's called the deep attachment. So deep attachment and the nuclei of origin or nuclei of termination. So I've already told you the nuclei of origin is if the motor nerve is arising from it. So obviously that nucleus is having the cell bodies of a neuron, right? So that will be the nucleus of origin. Supposing if you're talking of a sensory nucleus. So that sensory nucleus is this collection of the cell bodies within your CNS. So there'll be an axon coming from the periphery and reaching up to the CNS, and that will relay there. So these cell bodies, which are actually part of the sensory nucleus, that's where the axon is terminating. So it is the nucleus of termination. Okay, so deep attachment is the nucleus. And the nucleus, again, it is divided into two. That is the nucleus of origin and the nucleus of termination. So origin is for the motor and sensory, it is the termination, so nucleus of termination. So that's one thing which you should know. And there are columns, right? In the motor, you have somatomotor, then there is branchiomotor, and then you have the viscero or the secretomotor. So there are three columns in the motor plate, that is the basal plate. So somatomotor will be innervating the muscles which arise from the somites. And here we are talking of the head and neck, and brainstem has the nuclei which will innervate the head and neck. Okay, so that is the somites which were there in the above your cervical region. So these somites give rise to the muscles to which these nerves will go and innervate. That is 3, 4, 6, and 12. The second column was the branchiomotor column. So that is all that pharyngeal musculature and nerves. And the third one is the visceromotor or secretomotor. So here this is the parasympathetic nuclei. Okay, so the preganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibers arise from these nuclei. That is Edinger-Westphal nucleus. We have a salivatory nucleus. Okay, so this, and then you have the superior and inferior salivatory nucleus. So this is what you have in this visceromotor or secretomotor. So why do we say secretomotor or visceromotor? The parasympathetic or sympathetic innervation goes to two structures. One is a smooth muscle and the other is a gland. Head and neck, we don't have the cardiac muscle, so I didn't mention about that. Okay. So if it is going to a smooth muscle, we call it as a visceromotor. If it is going to the gland, we say it is secretomotor. So except the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, the rest of them are secretomotor. Okay, except the first one, that is the visceromotor, that is Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So those three columns. So I'll be taking cranial nerves in the order of the columns. So the first column is somatomotor just beside the midline, and these are 3, 4, 6, and 12. So these are very simple compared to the rest of the cranial nerves because they are just motor. Just a motor nerve fiber arises and it goes to its destination. Okay. So now that's about the 3, 4, 6 nerves. So the next class will be about hypoglossal. So let's talk about the oculomotor. So oculomotor, so there are three nerves which are motor to the extraocular muscles, which will be moving the eyeball. So the largest of these three motor nerves, that is the third, fourth, and the sixth, the largest is the oculomotor. So the name suggests because it is maximum, it is supplying to most of the extraocular muscles, the muscles which move the eyeball. And you can see these four, it moves the eye, and because it is innervating the muscles, and I hope you know what are the muscles which are innervated by the oculomotor, except the lateral rectus and the superior oblique. The rest of the 4 muscles are innervated by the oculomotor. That is your superior rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus, and the inferior oblique. Elevate the eyelid. So these elevate the eyelid because they innervate the striated part of your levator palpebrae superioris. Okay. So here, when you close your eyes, when you want to open them, so you need a muscle which will elevate your eyelid. So that is the levator palpebrae superioris. So this part, again, I mentioned the striated part. That means there is another part that is a smooth muscle part. The striated is what? It is a skeletal muscle. It is under your voluntary control. If you want to open your eyes, you open. Okay, if you don't want, you will not open your eyes. So that's under your voluntary control. And that the striated part of that muscle is what's under the control of your oculomotor nerve. But you've got another part which is not under your control, and that is the smooth part. Okay, and that is obviously, which is not under your control, is under the system. Which system? It is the autonomic system. So all the while you're just closing your eyes, you don't want to open, you don't want to study. But when you've seen the timetable of your examination when it has come, your just palpebral fissure widened. Okay, that was not beyond your control. So there was something else that was controlling. So your autonomic system, in a stage of this fear or terror or whatever you felt that looked like. So your body reacted to it, and then the sympathetic component has caused that particular smooth muscle part of your LPS, which has made your palpebral fissure much wide. So palpebral fissure is the gap between your upper and lower eyelid. Okay, so those are big eyes. That's because they've got a wide palpebral fissure. It's not that they have a very big eyeball. Okay, so moves the eye is the extraocular muscle, elevates the eyelid. So you have to be able to tell specifically it is a striated part of the levator palpebrae superioris. Okay, because in oculomotor nerve palsy, there will be a ptosis. Ptosis is the drooping of the eyelid. So when you listen to the class, slowly your eyelids droop. Okay, that's because you're not interested in the class. But there are conditions when you want to open, but you can't open when your oculomotor nerve is involved. There's a lesion of that. And the smooth muscle part, the small one called a superior tarsal muscle, and that is innervated by the sympathetic nerve fibers. And a lesion of any, when the sympathetic fibers reach up to this point, so from their start till their termination, on their way, if they are injured, okay, then that will lead to another syndrome called as a Horner syndrome. So that's a question for you to decide, to work out and then post it to me. I'll ask you one of the students to tell me about the Horner syndrome. So moves the eye, elevates the eyelid. The next is constrict the pupils and adjust the lens. So when you want to read something, so after you've seen that thing, you were terrified, and after I just texted you started, maybe some of them must have started like, yes, I'll read. You take a book and you look at it and you start reading it. So what's happening there? First, when you're looking at something near, your lens need to adjust. And this lens is adjusted because of a muscle called as ciliaris. So now that the eyeball class is over, you must have known that there are 2 intraocular muscles which are related to this oculomotor nerve. That is a sphincter pupillae and the other is a ciliaris muscle. Okay, so dilator pupilla is that which is with, again, a sympathetic system. Okay, so this is the constrictor. So it will adjust the lens. So when you're reading, first the lens will be adjusted. After that, the periphery part, the pupil constricts to shut down the peripheral light, whatever is there. So it's like more focused when you are reading. So this action is because of your oculomotor nerve through its innervation of the 4 of your ocular muscles. When you're looking again here, there is adduction, then elevation of the eyelid, then the constriction of the pupil, as well as the adjusting the lens. So these are the actions of the oculomotor. Then, as I told you, these are the muscles which arise from somites. So the head somites are, you have 3 ocular and 4 occipital somites. If you remember embryology, when we talked about paraxial mesoderm, that will segment into somites, and that's just beside your developing neural tube, very close to it. So what comes out of your neural tube to these muscles? It is a spinal nerve. And as the somite, whatever muscles come out of this somite, they migrate, they carry their nerve supply. That's why your intrinsic muscles, they bring that nerve down, even though they're going up to your periphery of the extremities. Okay, so here also, when we talk of head somites, above your cervical region, so above your cervical region, which part of CNS is developing, which part of the neural tube? It is the brain. So from the brain, what exit? It is the cranial nerves. So the cranial nerves, which are close to these somites, the three ocular somites, they go up to that somite. And from there, whatever muscles form from that somite, they innervate all those muscles. So this oculomotor nerve is the nerve of the first ocular somite. So it's a premandibular somite. You don't need to know the name of it. So there are three. So the first one. And this particular somite, it gives rise to all these five muscles, your levator, palpebris, superior, striated part, and the rest of the four muscles. So that's about the oculomotor. Okay. Then coming to the next one, that is a trochlear. So this is the thinnest, and it's one muscle, that is superior oblique, and 1:1. And here I wish to tell you one thing. You in physiology must have heard about this motor unit. Okay. So the ratio of the nerve fibers and the muscle fibers. So here it's almost 1:1. So it's very efficient they're acting. So you have your intrinsic muscles of the hand, which have less, ratio. And again here, when your extraocular muscles. And in that, the best is the trochlear. So if you're walking and you're, for a long period, then do you get fatigue? Okay, so you slowly want to wish to sit. But even if you're sitting, so you can't walk anymore, you need to take rest because your muscles are fatigued. And when you sit down, but still you can talk. You can talk for a long period. But then after that, you have, no more energy. Like when your tongue muscles get fatigued. After that, what's the next stage? You slowly that ptosis and you relax and you sleep. So the extraocular muscles, because of the very small motor units, because the nerve fibers innervating the ratio is very less. So these are the last muscles in your body to fatigue. And out of these, it is a superior oblique. Okay. So because it's 1:1 ratio, the trochlear and the muscle fibers of superior oblique. And one more thing about superior oblique, it is, this should be your favorite muscle actually. Favorite of most of you, because this is also called as the copying muscle. Okay. So if you want to copy, what do you do? So what is that position of your eyeball? So if you have a down and out, you look into the other person's paper down. Okay. So that's a copying muscle. So if your trochlear nerve is injured, you cannot copy. Of course, you do have other methods, but the general thing, that's what I'm going to say. Then this is from the second ocular somite. So second after 3, it is a 4, and this innervates a second, and only one muscle comes from it, that is your superior oblique. And then two special things about it, because you've already seen the brainstem, the diagram and all that. So you know this trochlear nerve is going to come from behind, okay? So behind the brainstem, that is from your, below your inferior collicule, and winds and comes forward. So that's the thing. So arises from the dorsal aspect of the membrane, and this crosses, so the two cross and they go forward. So that's one speciality of this. Coming to abducens, so trochlear, it's because the superior oblique, it takes the help of a trochlea and before it inserts. So that's a trochlear. And then abducens, the abductor of eyeball, we have the lateral rectus. So this is the next thinnest, and this is from the third somite. That's a prehyoid somite. And this one, it is having a long subarachnoid course. Yeah? So this is about the 3 cranial nerves, the motor nerves of the orbit. Then functional components. As I told you, they all are carrying efferents. So efferents are motor axons. So somatomotor axons is what is running in your oculomotor, trochlear, and your abducens to supply the muscles which have risen from the somites. So then come general visceral efferent. So here again, I told you the oculomotor is giving, it's innervating your intraocular muscles, which are smooth muscles. So these are visceromotor fibers. Okay, visceromotor fibers, these are somatomotor fibers. So the functional components, we call it as GSE and GVE. So if you're writing about oculomotor, essay, usually the essay will be about an oculomotor nerve. So you should not mention this 4 and 6 also. Okay. So functional components, general somatic efferent and general visceral efferent. If it's a trochlear, it is general somatic efferent. Abducens, general somatic efferent. So that should be the way you answer. Then coming to the intra-CNS. So that's part of the CNS. Okay, you've got the nucleus in your central nervous system, in the tissue, in the nerve tissue. Okay, so then this has to course out. So there I've sent you a diagram where you've seen the ventral aspect of the brainstem. So you can see some nerves being shown which are attaching to the brainstem, and then that's the root they're coming out. That was the superficial attachment. So from the nucleus till that peripheral part of the CNS, whatever, whether it is the midbrain or the pons or the medulla, that particular course is called as the intra-CNS course. Okay. So that means this, we talk of the nucleus and the nerve course in the CNS. So for this, you should know the sections of the brainstem. So this is a section of the midbrain at the level of the superior colliculus. So the midbrain is having two elevations on its dorsal aspect. One is above the pair of superior colliculi and below that a pair of inferior colliculi. All four are called as the corpora quadrigemina. And corpora quadrigemina is a short notes for you in the examination. So this superior colliculi is related to your vision, the visual reflexes, and the inferior colliculi are related with your auditory reflexes. And then here you have this part here, this is a cerebral aqueduct. So around this, the gray matter is concentrated, and this gray matter is called as periaqueductal gray matter. So this 3 and 4, that is your oculomotor and the trochlear. These two cranial nerve nuclei are located in the periaqueductal gray matter of the midbrain, but at different levels. So the oculomotor nerve complex is at the level of the superior colliculus, and the trochlear at the level of the inferior colliculus. But both of them are related to vision, okay, the movement of the eyeball. So this is this, and this is the location that you have the oculomotor nucleus. But then I've mentioned this part here as oculomotor nerve nuclear complex. So why did I say this? That is because we have, see, there are two different, if it is trochlear or the ambulance, it's just carrying, giving out somatomotor axons, that's all. But when you see oculomotor, there are somatomotor axons as well as somatomotor neurons as well as visceromotor neurons. So they have divided into two different populations. So one is for this and the other is for this. Again, this somatomotor nucleus, that again is in different parts. Okay, like, okay, I'll send the fibers to the medial rectus, I'll send it to the inferior oblique, I'll send it to the superior rectus. So like that, they divide. So all these small nuclei, which are all in one location, together we call that as a complex. Like you see a complex of so many shops are there in one complex, but they're all in one unit. So the same thing here. In this oculomotor nerve nuclear complex, you've got different populations of these neurons, which are going to a particular muscle. So that is here. And at this section, so I'll just revise it, not exactly, I don't stick to the oculomotor now. Let's just put everything together now. That's the end of your academic year. So the superior colliculus here, this is related to vision. So this oculomotor now is, what is it doing? It's moving your eyeball. So it should get the information from the visual cortex. So it also gets information from the superior colliculus. Okay. So there should be some communication between these two. Then here you can see one more bundle. This is a medial longitudinal fasciculus. So when you hear a sound, do you turn your head towards the sound? Turn, your eyes look that side, your neck turns. So there is some fibers which are connecting the nerves which are moving your eyeball, the nerves which pick up the sound, the nerves which can turn your muscle. So this bundle is called as a medial longitudinal fasciculus. If this has a defect, then obviously will be not turning your head towards the sound or whatever. Like in the class, what you do, I just ask you some question, all of you just look down and act you're like deaf and blind or dumb, whatever. Okay. So that's the action part. Okay. So here, this is the oculomotor nucleus. So you can see these are all, it's related with all of them. So medial longitudinal, it has to have good friendship with it. Then superior colliculus is also very good neighbor of this oculomotor nerve complex. Clear? So this is about this complex. In this diagram, I can show you here. See, oculomotor nuclear complex is the main motor nucleus, which is having the large multipolar neurons, which give rise to your somatomotor axons. Then the next one is an accessory motor nucleus, which is a parasympathetic, small multipolar neurons, and their visceromotor axons exit. And the name of this nucleus is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Okay, so this you should remember when you hear this term. And here I told you in the complex, the different shops. Look at this. This is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Then here, the muscles is 4, which are moving the eyeball. You can see divided like this. And this one muscle here, this is the levator palpebris superior. So this is responsible for LPS. This is responsible for medial rectus. So like that, they've divided their works. I mean, even their, in their appearance also. And here a little bit logic, if you can understand. If you remember the brainstem, basal plate and alar plate. So this is a midline. So here you should have the somatomotor nucleus. Just beside it, you must have the branchiomotor nucleus location. And here you must have the visceromotor nuclear location. That means if you see the different sections, if you're looking for the nuclei, they are almost away from the midline. Okay, a little bit away compared to this part. But here you can see this is just above this particular somatomotor nerves. So this is called as this migration during development, and that is called as neurobiotaxis. Original location is here, but then it has migrated here. If you can remember it, remember, or else it's not a big issue. But this you should know. So this is one example of neurobiotaxis. Okay. And this is a section of the midbrain. So here the cerebral aqueduct, this elevation which you can see, and here you will have this nucleus here, superior colliculus, and you'll have a pretectal nucleus. So this is the tectum. Okay. If the section here, imaginary line, behind it is tectum, and this is all tegmentum. Okay, so this will be the superior colliculus and a small nucleus in before, that is a pretectal. And here you have the red nucleus part here. This is the substantia nigra. This is the crus cerebri. So with the cortex to your spinal cord or brainstem, whatever nerve fibers are coming, they'll be occupying this place in the midbrain. Okay, so this is the periaqueductal gray matter, and this with the location of oculomotor nuclear complex. So these are the cerebral peduncles, like from the cerebrum, the nerve fibers are just coming here. Okay, and this is the ventral aspect of the brainstem. That means this side, this one you're seeing. Okay, and you can see these are the cerebral peduncles, and this is your oculomotor nerve. So a small sulcus on the medial aspect of the crus cerebri, which is called as an oculomotor sulcus. So this is where the oculomotor nerve coming out and exiting out. So this is a description of the images. See, oculomotor nerve, it's course in the midbrain. So this one, this is the oculomotor nerve nuclear complex. This is your oculomotor main motor nucleus, and this is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So then here the fibers come out. These are the visceromotor fibers. The red ones are the somatomotor fibers. They're all coming and they're in one bundle. So that bundle of nerves is the oculomotor nerve. So then these are crossing the tegmentum, red nucleus. So this is coursing. The lateral convexity is there. Okay, like this. So this is the convexity towards the lateral aspect. So you're coming here like this, going through the red nucleus, and here in the medial aspect of substantia nigra. This is the oculomotor sulcus where you'll have, and the exit. So up to this point is your intracerebral or the intra-CNS course. So this you should explain. Okay, from the periaqueductal gray matter, then coming out of it, traversing the tegmentum, red nucleus. As it's going, it's showing a lateral convexity, and then along the medial aspect of substantia nigra, actually it has to come this way, and then this part up to this point. Then coming to trochlear nerve nucleus. If you want to see the trochlear nerve nucleus, at which level will you give a section? At the level of inferior colliculus. So again here, this is cerebral aqueduct, and this is the periaqueductal gray matter here. These are the inferior colliculi, and here you can see the trochlear nucleus. Okay, and the same you can see, it's having its friend beside medial longitudinal fasciculus. So this one also should get information from the superior colliculus and the medial longitudinal bundle, as well as from your higher center, from the cortex. And here, this is the aqueduct, the nuclei here. So this is the only cranial nerve that is exiting from the dorsal aspect of the brainstem. And then you can see, this is the one which decussates. So this is the decussation. So nucleus and midbrain, so at which level it is present. And then you can see the nerve fibers are crossing the midline. There's a decussation here. And this is arising from the dorsal aspect of the midbrain. Then coming to the abducens nucleus, so it's the pons. So the pons, you know, it's forming part of the floor of the fourth ventricle, the lower part, and then this. So this is the abducens nucleus. And if you take a section of the pons, the section of the pons here, you are finding this part here. So this is the facial nucleus. So here, just beside the midline, somatomotor nucleus. Just a little bit away from it, the branchiomotor nucleus. So this is positioned properly. But you can see, this is again another example of this neurobiotaxis. Actually, this has come to this position. So you can find this nerves coursing down like this. So this is an abducens nucleus, and the fibers are coming out from the pons. Okay. But because of this facial fibers which are curving around it, forming an internal genome, there will be an elevation behind the open part of behind the pons. So that can be seen as the facial colliculus. So this is the floor of the fourth ventricle. So in the floor of the fourth ventricle, so this part is formed by the pons, this is formed by the medulla oblongata. So in the upper part of the floor of the fourth ventricle, you find an elevation that is called as the facial colliculus. And this represents the abducens nucleus with the internal genome of the facial nerve. So this is a very frequently asked question in the entrance examinations of your post-graduation, but this is always like, they give an option like abducens nucleus and or the internal genome, so which is actually crossing the elevation. So this is always, whenever this question, there's a big issue about it, because not everybody agrees to it that this is formed by abducens or this is formed by the internal genome. But remember, beneath this elevation, we have the abducens nucleus and the internal genome of the fibers. So that's about the nuclei. So these nuclei have to be, as I told you, that there are some connection with the higher centers and the other centers. So what are they? So because all of these are related in moving the eyeball, and these are all somatomotor, definitely they get a corticonuclear fibers from both the sides come an inner wedge. Okay, so the right and left come here, and this side right and left go there. So bilateral cerebral cortex, the cortical nuclear fibers. Then coming to the superior colliculus. So I told you this is also a very good friend of these cranial nerve nuclei, so they get information from that. Then coming to medial longitudinal fasciculus, so it unites them, all this. So these are important for the gaze. So the oculomotor nerve or the trochlear or abducens, we can just write the same. Come to intranuclear, the nuclear connections, that is, they have connections from cerebral cortex, from the superior colliculus, as well as the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Then coming to this oculomotor, additionally, because this is also regulating the actions of an intraocular muscles. So it is in contact with the prefrontal cortex because it is involved in accommodation. Because unless it gives information, gets information from here, it cannot do its action. Same thing, pretectal nucleus. So I told you in front of the superior colliculus, we have one that is the pretectal nucleus. And then pretectal nucleus related to the pupillary light reflex. So that's how their nucleons, like the ready, like I'll be going for somite derived muscles, and I'll go for the unstriated muscles. But then I should get some commands. Okay, so I need to get the information. So I and myself, and if I have somebody else beside. So that's the other connections which we have just talked of. Then coming to superficial attachment, that is their attachment to the brainstem. So when you look at the ventral aspect of a brainstem, you find so many cranial nerves attached to it. Okay, so when we separate the brain, obviously we have to cut the nerves. Okay, so they get cut all actually. So the superficial attachment, and then this is the brainstem. So the diagram I already have shown you. And here see the oculomotor nerve. So here medial to the cerebral peduncles. And then here you can see trochlear nerve coming from behind. See, this is the dorsal aspect. So this is superior colliculus, this is inferior colliculus. So beneath the inferior colliculus, so they decussate, and then here, this is the fourth cranial nerve. The fourth. So here you can see the base of the brain. So along with the brainstem, these are the cerebral peduncles location, and here. So if an examination of the specimen of brain is given to you, you have to be able to show the location. If supposing the oculomotor nerve is, they're so thin, they may be lost, or when the others are students are saying, they may just pick the nerve fibers and they may be lost. But you should know the location exactly where the oculomotor nerve has its superficial attachment. So that you should be able to point out. So cerebral peduncles here, just medial to it. And then this is all the pons here. Okay, and you can see the trochlear is coming from the other side behind. And then here, this is pons and this is medulla, pontomedullary junction. This is the pyramid, this is the olive. So here, pons and medulla. So this black strip is kept to show these nerve fibers well. And please, the nerve fibers are not colored. Here they have colored it. Okay, they've painted these nerve fibers. And they've put this part, a strip behind, and then actually this is the color of how the nerves look. And not this much bright. So this is the sixth cranial nerve, that is the abducens nerve. Then coming to facial colliculus, again here, see this is the cranial nerve 6 from the pontomedullary junction. This is the facial colliculus here. Once again, this course. So once they exit, what is it? So the brain, it's having some coverings. So closest to it is the pia mater, then there's an arachnoid, and there's a dura mater. So of course, once they just exit from the brain, they are in the subarachnoid space. So what is there in the subarachnoid space? We have the blood vessels. So when they're coursing and they go up more outward, so they are related to the blood vessels. Like here, if you see. So this is the basilar artery, the vertebral arteries. They unite to form the basilar artery, and this divides here. Here's the posterior cerebral arteries, and these are the superior cerebellar arteries. Okay, so this diagram you should know, this is circle of Willis. So we can see that there's oculomotor nerve is passing between the superior cerebellar artery and the posterior cerebral artery. So between them, the oculomotor nerve is coming out like this. And you can also see the trochlea when it is coming, that's also related to these blood vessels. So this is an important relation. Okay, so in the exam you'll be asked about the course and relations. Okay, so it's not just a course, you have to tell if any important structures are beside it. So this is important. That's because, see, you've got a small space in the skull. You've got brain tissue, you've got nerves, you've got the CSF, there is the blood vessels. So something else grows or then definitely there's a compression on quite a good number of structures because there are so many things all crowded. And just look at the way these structures are so close to each other. So supposing there is some pathology of the blood vessels here. So one of them is then aneurysm. So the wall of the blood vessel, it thins out and there's an expansion. Okay. And that obviously it occupies space and there's a chance that it can compress the oculomotor nerve, leading to weakness of your extraocular muscles as well as your intraocular. It depends upon how much it's going to compress on it. So that's the important relation here. And here you can see this is the pons. So you have a sulcus, the basilar sulcus on the pons. The basilar artery is lodged here. And then here, these are the posterior cerebral arteries. And here, this is a posterior communicating artery, see. And then here, superior cerebellar arteries. So actually, they have to come from here. And then you can see between these two, you can see the cranial nerve 3. So between these two, superior cerebellar artery and posterior cerebral artery, the cranial nerve is exiting like this. This is the crus cerebri, just medial to it. And then here, they're again related to what? Posterior communicating artery. So any aneurysm in this region or here, there is a chance of compression of the cranial nerve 3. And then the next important thing is cavernous sinus. So this is a subarachnoid space. So cavernous sinus theory class is over. So it's between the dura. So if you look at this is a cranial cavity. So recently the cranial cavity osteology is completed. And here these are all the dural folds. This part here. This is petrous part of temporal bone. Okay, so here they've elevated a part, tentorium cerebelli. I hope you just understood what this is, a foramen magnum. And just cut the brainstem. So what you're seeing is a spinal cord here. And you can see there are so many foramina through which the nerve fibers exit. So the cranial nerves exit the cranial cavity through foramina and fissures. So this is actually the location of your cavernous sinus. This is where it is present. Okay. So the dura and then the meningeal layers. So this they have elevated to show you the cranial nerves which are going beneath it. So you can see this is the oculomotor nerve, and then you can see the trochlear nerve. So they go here. So beneath the tentorium cerebelli, they pass and they go. And here they expose the cavernous sinus. So in the cavernous sinus, what do you have? The internal carotid artery. See, this is the carotid siphon. And beside it, you can see abducens nerve. So this abducens nerve is along with the internal carotid artery. So this part here, and then this is the oculomotor nerve, and then you below that will be the trochlear will go, and then the trigeminal, ophthalmic and maxillary division. So here you can see. So this cavernous sinus is exposed. So what you were able to see, internal carotid artery, and just below that, in this relation, you can see cranial nerve 6. So this is that cranial nerve 6. Okay, and laterally in the lateral wall, you have the oculomotor, trochlear, then here ophthalmic division and maxillary division of the trigeminal. So here you can make out as a trochlear, oculomotor, a thin one is trochlear, will be below, then ophthalmic division of trigeminal, and then maxillary division of trigeminal. So the relations. So it's coursing in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus, and it is related, the oculomotor related to the trochlear below, and then below it is trochlear nerve related above with oculomotor, below with the maxillary ophthalmic division of trigeminal. Then abducens is within this one, cavernous sinus, and it's closely related with the internal carotid artery. So that's the course, and these are the relations. So such a small area here. So if there is an infection, a cavernous sinus thrombosis, you can see quite a number of nerves can get involved. So usually it is not a single nerve palsy if there is some fracture of the base of your skull or some aneurysms or this thrombosis. So usually more than 1, 2 may be involved, or maybe 3 may be involved because of the close proximity and the relations. So this you should study by yourself, all this. This is how the cavernous sinus is there, this relations, because this class is completed. And here one more one more point I wish that you should know. So this is an oculomotor nerve. It's carrying 2 different fibers. It's got 2 things in mind. I have to go to the muscle. I have to go to the intraocular muscle. That's it. But when they are going, there are certain communications. Okay, so in the eyeball, you are having what? You have dilated pupillae. So this needs sympathetic. So head and neck, we talk of only parasympathetic ganglia. Because whatever sympathetic innervation comes, that comes from your superior cervical ganglion. So if you remember the sympathetic, there are a pair of sympathetic trunks, paravertebral in position, and there are cervical ganglia, superior, middle, and inferior. 3 ganglia in this cervical sympathetic trunk. And this superior cervical ganglion, so ganglion is what? Cell bodies. So from there, whatever come out are the postganglionic neurons. So the postganglionic neurons to supply your head and neck come from your superior cervical ganglion. But how can they reach up to your face and your brain? Okay, so the way they can come is they can climb up, or they come with the arteries. So we've got a carotid system here. Okay, so we've got an external carotid and we have an internal carotid. So along with it, this plexus of nerves, which is a sympathetic plexus, it goes along with it and reaches up its destination. So when they are going up to your head and neck, now the oculomotor nerve is going towards your eyeball. Then there is a dilated pupilla which needs sympathetic innervation. So the blood vessels here, so this is an internal carotid artery which is surrounded by a sympathetic plexus of nerves. Okay, but oculomotor nerve, this one is going up to your intraocular muscles. So there will be some fibers, the sympathetic, they just jump onto this nerve. It's just like you're going on a highway and you offer a lift to somebody. So this nerve says, okay, fine, you can come along. I'm going to the same destination. So oculomotor nerve also carries certain fibers towards the intraocular muscle, dilated pupillae, or to the other blood vessels. So this also forms it's a passage nerve. It provides a route for these fibers to go. And the second thing is, so when these 3, 4, and the 6, they are going to the extraocular muscles, there is one more sensation there, that's a proprioceptive sensation. So from the muscles, whatever sensation it is there, the sense of position, so that is all the proprioceptive sensation. So the same nerve, it's like anyway you've come, so we use the same channel. So proprioceptive fibers, they follow the course of oculomotor nerve. But whatever sensations are there in your head and neck, they're all picked up by what? By the trigeminal. So then again, they just give a passage to it, and then they give it to this ophthalmic division. Okay. So this is one thing we should understand the concept. So if this is one car, okay, and two people are going in this car, this oculomotor now, and if it is trochlear, it is one. The general somatic different here, general visceral different. Then internal carotid is here, and then it's giving a few fibers, sympathetic. Please take them along with you when you're going up to the eyeball. And same thing, the proprioceptive fibers, which actually have to communicate with the ophthalmic division and go to trigeminal nucleus. They say, anyways, you're here. So we'll give you the information and you just carry it and give it to this ophthalmic. So they're acting like messengers. So the 3, 4, 6 cranial nerves bring back proprioceptive sensitive fibers, but they don't take it anywhere to the brainstem. Rather, they will just communicate them to the ophthalmic division of trigeminal. Same with the postganglionic sympathetic fibers from the carotid plexus. So the plexus of nerves around the internal carotid. These communicate with the oculomotor nerve. And then now the time to exit. So there are fissures. So this is the orbit. That's the location of the eyeball and the muscles which move the eyeball. So then they have to enter here. So there is a superior orbital fissure, there's an inferior orbital fissure, this is an optic canal through which your optic nerve that goes into the cranial cavity. So this superior orbital fissure, this is an enlarged part here. Then you have this annulus tendinous ring, which gives origin to the muscles. And you can see this cranial nerves. So here you can see there are two divisions marked here. That means the oculomotor nerve which is coming, it's dividing into a superior division and an inferior division. And then this is abducens. And you can make out the trochlear is outside the ring. That's why when you see the dissection of eyeball, the orbit, you find this nerve most close to this orbit. So this diagram you have to practice. So this can come as one of the very short notes. Okay, superior orbital fissure and the tendinous ring. So overall, the intracranial course of the oculomotor. So from here, so it's coursing through the tegmentum, and then this is the oculomotor sulcus. This is the superficial attachment, subarachnoid course. It's gone up to the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus, and then through the superior orbital fissure, it gets into the orbit. And you can see this is abducens. This is a bend here, like this. Now they have entered into the orbit. So this is called as an extracranial or intraorbital course. So these are the extraocular muscles. So you must know what are their actions. So oblique subduct, recti adduct. I hope you know this. So here, this is the eyeball. So this is the roof of the orbit that they have removed. And what you see inside is the eyeball. You can see this is the optic nerve, which will leave through the optic canal. And these are all the muscles, which will move the eyeball. And here, this is the eyeball. You can see the muscles, how they are. Okay, and so in this diagram, you can just refer and see. So here, now this one, the small pinhead size, this part is called as a ganglion here. So what is this? So now they're bringing the oculomotor nerve is bringing preganglionic parasympathetic fibers to go to the intraocular muscles. But can they go so free like your somatomotor? So I've told you that the motor exit from the CNS is very straightforward. It comes out of the CNS and just goes to its destination muscle. But if it is parasympathetic, it needs one more nerve to give the information. That is your post-ganglionic nerve fiber. So this preganglionic parasympathetic has to dump the information onto the head of the next nerve that is the postganglionic neuron. So this synapse occurs at one place that is called as a ciliary ganglion. So the oculomotor nerve is carrying the visceromotor fibers to intraocular muscles, but these will just go up to the ciliary ganglion because there they will innervate, and from there they will go to the intraocular muscles. The postganglionic will go to the intraocular muscles. So that's about the ciliary ganglion. So from midbrain, heading your vestibal nucleus, there the preganglionic parasympathetic nerve starts. Then it goes up to the ciliary ganglionic orbit. From there, the postganglionic nerve fibers begin as short ciliary nerves, and these will go to the sphincter pupilla and ciliaris muscle. Okay, so this is the direction. So this ganglion all I'll teach you in another class. So all these dissections you can just make out because we've not dissected. I've put these dissection images so that you can understand. See the trochlear nerve here. So it's close to the wall of orbit because it's not coming from the tendinous stream. It got separated here. And this is the superior oblique. Your superior oblique and the trochlear nerve. So you can go through this diagrams later. And this is the dissection of the eyeball. So you can see this is the iris. And this part is the pupil. And this is the cornea. So you can hear section. So this is the lens. And this is regulated by the ciliaris muscle. Okay, so this is important for accommodation. And then you can see this is the pupil. And you have the iris here. And you've got the sphincter pupillae muscle. And this is the dilated pupillae muscle. So dilated pupillae again sympathetic. So dilated, it's got wide pupils. Then this is the sphincter pupillae. When it is the circular band of muscles, when it constricts, it is going to restrict the amount of light that enters into your eye. This dilate allows more amount of light. Okay, so these are the muscles. So the ciliary muscle is a smooth muscle ring that is helps in altering the shape of lens and important for accommodation. Sphincter pupillae, the name itself tells you its action. And so this is all you can read. And you can see the branch here. So the oculomotor nerve in the superior orbital fissure, it divides into two branches, a superior branch and an inferior branch. So this superior branch is going above and levator palpebral superior to the striated part of the LPS and then the superior rectus. And this inferior branch is going and supplying to the medial rectus, inferior rectus and inferior oblique. So here you have the ciliary ganglion. So whatever fibers are going with it, the parasympathetic fibers, they're traveling all the way down. They're not going to the superior branch because here you have. So these will be going along with the inferior branch. And you can see the medial rectus, they have already left here. So it's going here. So this part is what? This is the nerve to the inferior oblique or the branch to inferior oblique. So this is where it's exiting out and going to the ciliary ganglion. So you can use some other color. Supposing if you're using this yellow color to color all this, you can put a green color line. I don't know if I can show it here. So these fibers go like this and then here. And from here, you get a postganglion. And this will go up to the ciliaris and the sphincter pupillae. So these are all what? This is the somatomotor fibers, and this is the extra part, the parasympathetic fibers which are going. Then coming to this, so this nerve to inferior oblique is carrying two different fibers. So one is this is the somatomotor to inferior oblique as well as the parasympathetic fibers. So this is one here, the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Here, this is the brainstem. So now we're just putting them all together. You can see the brainstem part here. And inferior colliculi, the cranial 4 is coming out. This is 3. This is a 6. And this is the intracranial course. And once they come out, this is extracranial course. So within the CNS, then the exiting out, intracranial course in the cranial cavity. And here they're related to the cavernous sinus. And then the exit, this is the orbit part. This is the extracranial course. And you can see how they're innervating the various muscles. So you should know what are the actions of the extraocular muscles, and you should know the testing of them. Only then you can understand what happens if there's a palsy of that particular nerve. So this is it, how they are going to look. So a down and out eye is a classical look of these oculomotor nerve palsy. Okay, and then here a little bit tilt in the face, head to the normal side. So this will be the trochlear nerve palsy, characteristic face, a pathetic face. So it's also called as a pathetic nerve. And here you can see the lateral rectus palsy. It's a the abducens nerve palsy. So you can see it's here. This is squint. Because if lateral rectus is paralyzed, the medial rectus will be more strong and tries to pull the eyeball medially. So these are the characteristic faces here. This is most important. So down and out look, that is the oculomotor nerve palsy. You can see there is ptosis. You can see the palpebral fissure. So between these two, this is the palpebral fissure, and you can see it is less because there is ptosis here. So what are the features of oculomotor nerve palsy? So first thing, these three parts, because of their innervation to the intraocular muscles. So dilated and fixed pupil. So normal pupil is like this. So but that particular side you get a dilated and fixed pupil. It is non-reactive to light. Because it can't, that sphincter action is lost. Then loss of accommodation because of the ciliaris muscle. And then coming to ptosis because of the involvement of the striated component of the levator palpatus superiorus. So apparent proptosis. What do you mean by apparent proptosis? So most of the extraocular muscles are innervated by their oculomotor nerve. So if there's a palsy of this oculomotor nerve, so there are quite a number of muscles which will get weakened. So when they weaken, so it's like the tone is lost in the muscles. So because of which the eye appears to protrude out a little. So that's called an apparent proptosis. Because of the weakness of muscles, it appears to pop out. Okay, so that's the apparent proptosis. And down and out eye because of the action of the superior oblique. And then diplopia. So the side muscles are, they're not able to maintain a proper gaze. So obviously there'll be a double vision there. So that is diplopia. And the trochlear nerve palsy here. So you can see there's a slight tilt of the head. You can see upward eye in superior oblique trochlear nerve palsy. And then look at this abducens nerve palsy. So here, and when he's trying to look to the side, and here it's more medially located here. Okay, because this is an internal strabismus or the medial skull. So this is abducens nerve palsy. So here you have to first study the actions of the muscles. Then you have to be able to explain these palsies. Okay, so that's again an assignment for you to take. So that's about the the motor nerves of the orbit. So now let's just summarize in a few minutes. So for your normal gaze, okay, so binocular vision. So we need the action of these 12 muscles which are moving both the eyes. So the motor nerves of the orbit are the oculomotor, trochlear, and the abducens. So these have the nuclei positioned at various levels in the brainstem, like 3 and 4 in the midbrain, and the abducens in the pons. And one more thing related to it is the facial contours, which you should know. Then when they exit, the oculomotor and abducens, they come out from the ventral aspect, and you know the location. And if it is the trochlear, it exits from the dorsal aspect of the midbrain and comes forward. And after that, they traverse in a subarachnoid space, and where especially the oculomotor and trochlear are very much close related with two nerves, two arteries. So an aneurysm of them can cause an injury, can cause an oculomotor nerve palsy or a trochlear palsy. Then after that, they're entering into the cavernous sinus. So here they're located abducens along with internal carotid artery in the cavernous sinus, and in the lateral wall are the 3 and the 4. Then they're going to exit the cranial cavity and enter into the orbit via the superior orbital fissure. So there again, trochlear is outside the tendinous ring for the muscles. And then they enter. And then that's the inner vein. So here oculomotor nerve is having one more functional component, that is the general visceral efferent. And these fibers start from Edinger-Westphal nucleus, and they go up to the nerve, to the inferior oblique. There they leave it, enter into the axillary ganglion, and from there the postganglion fibers relay, and these will be going up to your intraocular muscles. Okay, so this is about the 3, 4, and 6. So that's all for the class today.